Hello, everybody. Welcome to the world premiere of JAWGUST, which I am particularly proud to introduce to all of you tonight.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
From the best-selling novel, Jaws, rated PG, may be too intense for younger children.
Dearest Mother, ahoy, it's me, the other son I hear that you sometimes refer to as that former tax write-off. Well, guess what, Grammy? I'm back. I'm back and JAWGUST is back. Sure, I did one episode for each of those sequels, but JAWGUST as a month-long show, it was done. It was over. Kaput. But then I thought about the idea that I did for Margie McFive. Oh, don't you dare pretend you don't know what I'm speaking of. Yes, this year I'm returning to the original, to the best, to one of the greatest movies of all time. From 1975, I'm returning to Jaws. You remember 1975, right? It was towards the end of that year that your own father probably had one too many to drink one night, and then 9 months later, boom, I was birthed. Anyway, unlike the original JAWGUST where I watched Jaws 31 times in 31 days, this time I'm watching it only once in 31 parts. Yes, I'm spending JAWGUST, trademark pending, watching this movie. To honor Jaws' 50th anniversary, I am calling this Golden JAWGUST. And yes, I will be watching the movie only 4 minutes at a time. You remember 4 minutes, right? Speaking of that night in 1975. You know what? No. I am not going to sit here at my typewriter and disparage Father's virility. He's been through enough dealing with you. So, if you're reading this letter, know that I'm doing fine. I'm thriving, and I am podcasting all month long. Thanks again for creating me. Hope it was fun. Talk to you soon, your son. Yes, again, the other one. Michael. JAWGUST 1st, 2025. JAWGUST is back once again. Jaws is 50, so I thought, my friends, for you to come with me as I go back to Amity. A 31-day podcast, talking 4 minutes of Jaws each day. It will be another month-long show for me, and I hope to see you there, 'cause JAWGUST is back again.
August 1st is now JAWGUST 1st. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the return of JAWGUST. Yes, the last time you heard from me was for Marty McFly in July, but the last time you heard from JAWGUST was 2 years ago? I think JAWGUST The Revenge, because the original was 2020, and that was a 31-day adventure. That was the thing that predated any Marty McFly. JAWGUST was the first one where I dedicated an entire month to one movie. And with Marty McFly, my instinct was, I got to do all three. Not the same with JAWGUST. Jaws 2 came around. I still wanted to honor those movies. Or I still wanted to watch them. So I did do one episode for Jaws 2, Jaws 3D, and Jaws The Revenge. The only Jaws that I originally saw in the theater. But there's no way I was going to do month-longs for those. No. Just the answer is no. But I still wanted to do them. And so that was 2020. 2021, 2022, 2023, and JAWGUST was done. No 2024, but then I thought 2025 brings the 50th anniversary of Jaws. And if you know anything about this website, we love Jaws. Fine Movies, Fine Spirits has done 2 episodes on Jaws. In fact, their most recent episode is just kind of revisiting Jaws. And that on top of the fact that I'm back here to talk Jaws all month long, plus the original JAWGUST. I mean, we love making podcasts, we love talking movies, and we love talking Jaws. So hopefully, I'm going to say definitely, I'm going to get my Fine Movies, Fine Spirits co-host, Chris, to join the show sometime this month. Also, I mentioned Marty McFly in July. Well, that was when I went to go see Back to the Future the Musical with my good friend Eric. Also, good friend of the show, very frequent guest. And I actually saw him tonight. He drove by as I was walking back to my house. And he was going out and he said, "Hey, do you want to join me?" And I said, "Eric, I have JAWGUST to do." Anyone else in the world would have looked at me like I was crazy. And he looked at me and said, "Of course you do. You go do that." Okay, maybe he didn't say it exactly like that, but he respected, or he maybe not even respected, maybe that's too strong. He understood that I had work to do, and here I am doing that work. Now that was like an hour and a half ago. But Eric will be also joining the show at some point, maybe even more than once. I'm, very excited to do a show this way. Marty McFly, it was a lot easier to do for a month-long show because you're only focusing on 4 minutes of a movie at a time, or at least it was 3.5 for Back to the Future, but around that. But for Jaws, it is 4 minutes at a time. Then the last episode is like, we're covering 3 minutes and 56 seconds. I know there's 4 seconds in there about that we won't, that it doesn't add up to 4 minutes, but that's enough that I was like, nope, 4 minutes is the exact time. And when you watch Jaws at 4 minutes at a time, or at least when you start watching Jaws and you only watch the first 4 minutes, your instinct when seeing it is, oh, it's a nice movie about a girl that goes swimming and has a nice time. If you were to never watch, the if you've never seen it before and you're really watching in 4 minutes at a time, you're like, wow, I can't wait to see how the swimming goes tomorrow. I mean, the movie's called Jaws, so it probably isn't going to end well. But at that moment, when this 4 minutes is up, because believe me, to start a movie with these 4 minutes is very different than the beginning of Back to the Future, where there's so much happening in like just the opening scene of Doc's workshop. Here, it's mostly credits. It's a couple lines, and it is a strange moment where someone mentions something about an amputee, and I have to credit once again former and future guest of the show, Eric, the man who drove by me tonight in his Toyota. Eric told me that at the beginning of this movie, listen for when someone says at the beach he's an amputee. And I went back and I listened. But we're not going to get there yet. We're going to cover these 4 minutes because we have 4 minutes to discuss. Now, he asked me, how long do you usually try to go for a show? And I said, usually I try to do about 20 minutes. He's like, whoa. And I said, well, I try to make the show, I can yap for 20 minutes. I feel like anything shorter than 20 minutes is, I'd like around at least to get to that range. I feel like that's a good kind of space to have at least an episode a day. Now, to do that, if you've noticed, I didn't start talking till almost 5 minutes in. See, Eric, that's the trick. Maybe it's a 20-minute show, but if you do 5 minutes of clips and music and tomfoolery, it makes it a lot easier. That being said, I feel like we're going to go over 20 minutes today because we haven't even got to the beginning of these 4 minutes. So why don't we jump in and talk about what we see in these 4 minutes of Jaws? Mind you, as I said, the first minute, actually it's like the first 2 minutes, barely anything happens. We have credits, okay? And it opens up with the classic Universal Pictures logo. It says Universal and MCA Company. Now, I looked it up. I looked it up on Logopedia, which is at logos.fandom.com, the history of the Universal logo. This logo that we are seeing here says it was in use from 1971 to 1990. Before this logo, it actually said a Universal picture. That was from 1965 to 71. But from 71 to 1990, and do you remember what the first movie was in 1990? I'm almost positive it was Back to the Future 3 that was the first one to use the newer version of Universal Studios. But the last movie to use it, Bird on a Wire. What does that have to do with Jaws? Absolutely nothing, but it was written on this Wikipedia, Logopedia thing. So damn it, I wanted to say it. It actually says Universal and MCA Company. Nothing to do with the Beastie Boys. No, MCA stands for Music Corporation of America. And it looks like MCA took over Universal Pictures in mid-1962. It says the long-awaited takeover of Universal Pictures by MCA, Inc. happened in mid-1962 as part of the MCA-Decca Records merger. As a final gesture before leaving the talent agency, virtually every MCA client was signed to a Universal contract. In 1963, MCA formed Universal City Studios, merging the motion picture and television arms of the formerly Universal Pictures Company and Review Studios, which they later named Universal Television, and blah, 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 blah. With MCA in charge, Universal became a full-blown A-film movie studio with leading actors and directors under contract offering slick commercial films, and a studio tour subsidiary launched in 1964. Wow, MCA owned this company for a long time. Just by kind of briefly looking at more Wikipedia, it seems like MCA ceased or lasted until 1996, but then it was acquired by Seagram. Wait a minute. Seagram, the beverage company, the Seagram's Seagram's golden wine cooler. It's wet and it's dry. And then later reincorporated into MCA Studios. What the hell? So it became, well, I guess that becomes NBC Universal. Anyway, somehow MCA is still part of it, but it evolved and somehow there's a wine cooler. I don't know exactly. This is got to be the most boring 4 minutes so far already. And we're only 9 seconds into this clip. Okay. But here's the thing. The best part, about this 4 minutes, the best part is that we hear John Williams' score for the first time. You know what's funny? Even with that score, that harmonica at the end is also so like instrumental in just the putting you into the movie. You know, maybe not the first time you've seen it, but when you have lived this movie for 50 years, have watched this movie your entire life, that like just kind of just feels like summer. That whole shot at the beginning where the people are sitting around the dune reminds me of Salisbury Beach growing up, and just the music, you know, not that, I mean, people weren't sitting around when I was a kid playing harmonica, but people were sitting around. There were bonfires, the dunes, the water right there. It feels so New England, but you don't see that. You are only listening and you hear that harmonica, and that's why I wanted to keep the whole Jaws, the whole beginning right there. But in that beginning, we actually get the credits. And something I wanted to talk about with the actors of this movie. But before we get to the actors, I want to mention all the credits we see. It starts with a Zanuck Brown production. Now that's Richard Zanuck and David Brown, both of which are no longer with us. Richard Zanuck passed away in 2012 and David Brown in 2010. So they were both alive back in 2005 when I went with my friends to the original Jaws Fest. But they've produced movies forever. I mean, Driving Miss Daisy, I'm looking at best known for Cocoon, Driving Miss Daisy, Deep Impact, and of course, Jaws, all the way up into Dark Shadows with, this is for Richard Zanuck. So they were working a lot with Johnny Depp and Tim Burton, it looks like, over the years. Yes, definitely. But they go back even before Jaws. Let me see. The first movie that like really is big that they produced was The Sting. And then they did Sugarland Express. And if you know what Sugarland Express is, directed by, yes, Steven Spielberg. So that was their first connection with Spielberg. Of course, they were probably like, hey, let's bring that young guy in to direct the fish movie. David Brown, if I look at his credits, also Cocoon, Deep Impact, The Player, A Few Good Men. So you see, looks like they didn't always work together, but when they did, they made some great movies. Yes, The Sting, again, Sugarland Express, and of course Jaws, I think is when things really take off for them as a production duo. Now the next panel, the next card we see are the three main actors of the movie: Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, and Roy Scheider. It's actually, Robert Shaw's a little bit higher than them because he's probably the biggest name, then Roy Scheider on the left and Richard Dreyfuss on the right. Now, here's where I wanted to talk about the actors of this movie. Robert Shaw, he'd been acting all the way back in the 50s. He'd been in a lot of different things. He was in The Sting. We're going to mention The Sting again. And he was, I believe, only 47 or 48 because he was born in 27. So he would be 50 in 1977, which means, 74, 75. He's younger than me. That rocks me to my core because that is a man. And I still feel like quite a boy. So that is crazy. And he only died a couple of years after this in 1978. Roy Scheider was only in his early 40s when he did Jaws. He's no longer with us, passed away in 2008. And he's done, other movies. He was in The French Connection. He's in All That Jazz. He's in Sequest. Okay, here's my point. And yes, Richard Dreyfuss, probably the most outside of Jaws that has, big things other than Jaws. And that's my point right there. All of the actors, even Richard Dreyfuss, every single actor in this movie, when you think of that person, Jaws is the movie you think of, no matter what. Yeah, sure, Richard Dreyfuss has another Stakeout. Okay, he has Close Encounters. He has Stand By Me. He has tons of movies. But Mr. Holland's Opus was a big one. But Jaws is the first one I think you think of with all of them. Definitely, you see Robert Shaw, you don't think, oh, he was also in The Sting and this. No, you think Quint. You see Roy Scheider. Yes, he was great in French Connection. You think you don't think of that. You don't think of anything but Brody. Now that, I guess, could be a curse to some actors, but the fact that you have something like that is a blessing. Richard Dreyfuss, guy still kicking today. He's, some people, maybe sometimes he needs a kick back, but this is still like his number one, like the legacy of him is still tied to this movie. And I mean, don't even get me with Murray Hamilton and Lorraine Gary. Yes. They too, they're on the next card. We see, well, first that it says Jaws, which is of course the name of the movie, a great visual of, we're just under the water dealing with, looking around like at the shark's point of view. We see co-starring Lorraine Gary. I wonder how she got the job. Oh, her husband was like head of the studio, wasn't he? Then the next card is Murray Hamilton. Yes, Murray Hamilton. Great in The Graduate, which I only just saw a couple of years ago. Great actor. But when you see him, you go, that's the mayor from Jaws. That's what you see. Kyle Gottlieb, I mean, look, he was a writer. This is his legacy. Jeffrey Kramer, this is his legacy. Susan Backline, this is her legacy. These are all these are the actors who are really haven't done much other than Jaws. I mean, Jeffrey Kramer, wasn't he in one of the Friday the 13th or something like that? Oh wait, Halloween 2. He was in Halloween 2. And he was in 2 episodes of Laverne and Shirley. But he's actually kind of went on to be a big time producer, produced a ton of TV shows like Ally McBeal, The Practice, Chicago Hope. He produced a couple episodes of that. So he's gone on to do a lot of things. But if you saw his face, or as far as acting is concerned, you see him and you think, that's friggin' Hendrix. He found Chrissy's body. Yes, that's Chrissy. Susan Backline. Again, no longer with us. She actually passed away last year. She's been in stuff, but wasn't she more like a stunt performer? She played Tammy. Oh, that's a great name. My wife's name in an episode of The Fall Guy in 1982. That's the last thing she's ever done. So her big claim to fame is the first thing she's ever done as Chrissy in Jaws. Now, the next credit is John Williams. And there's someone who you don't think, oh, Jaws, when you think John Williams right away. But you don't not think of it. You think of, oh, that guy is a goddamn genius who not only did Jaws, not only did Star Wars, not only did Superman, not only did E.T., not only did Indiana friggin' Jones, not only did Jurassic Park, not only did the Harry Potter, the quintessential themes of characters that, okay, Indiana Jones was created for the movies. But Superman, he's been around forever, yet the theme is so tied to him that even the new movie uses John Williams' score in their theme. I don't know what the new Harry Potter show will do, but again, there's another theme that is so tied to the movies. It's so part of the movies that it feels like it's the Harry Potter theme, not just the theme of the movies, like his actual theme, because that's how good John Williams is. Again, Star Wars, there's been other scores to other Star Wars TV shows and movies, and what they're all doing is all building off of the legacy that John Williams created with those originals. The dude is a genius, and it is like he's not only a musical genius, it's like it's so in the zeitgeist, is that the right word, that his scores are part of pop culture. They're part of American culture. They're part of like cinematic culture, world culture. They're just part of human culture. I don't even know, like I can't say enough how many different themes he's created for many different movies and characters. And there are so many classical, like, oh, that's a great theme. That's him too. Oh, that's a great theme. That's him too. Yes. If it's a great theme, it's a good chance it is him. Now, the next name that we see in the credits is Verna Fields. She is the film editor. She actually passed away in 1982. And actually, Jaws was the last movie that she edited on. She was also a sound editor in a lot of different movies as well. And for some reason, I thought she was like a long time Spielberg collaborator, but no. I just know, I remember him in interviews talking about how instrumental she was in making this movie successful. It's like so many different things had to come together to make this movie, classic and work. Never mind the direction of Steven Spielberg. We haven't even got to him on the credits yet. But the music of John Williams, the editing of Verna Fields, and the photography of Bill Butler, who is the next person in the credits. Cinematographer Bill Butler, who we lost back in 2023. He did such movies as Anaconda, really? Grease, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. His last movie was something called The Boys at the Bar in 2016. Let me look, his last big movie Zombie Prom, no, that's a short. I'm looking back to let me see a movie that I go, oh, everyone knows of that movie. Don King, the TV movie? No. Anaconda. I mean, that really is it. Flipper? Okay. Beethoven's Second, Cop and a Half? All right. Maybe he hasn't done Hot Shots. Okay, there you go. That's a great movie. Graffiti Bridge with friggin' Prince. Child's Play? The original Child's Play? Okay. This guy has done a lot of stuff. Rocky 4, The Sting 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 2. If he doesn't do Rocky, if he's not, he didn't do Rocky. He did all the Rocky sequels. He did Damien, The Omen 2, but not the original Rocky. Interesting. Well, maybe he was too busy doing Jaws. Anyway, on the next card, now we are already in the dunes where one dude's playing guitar. Kids are just sitting around, drinking beer. And the card talks about the writers. Screenplay by Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb, based on the novel by Peter Benchley. I read the novel. I read it twice. I read it years ago on a paperback that fell apart while I was reading it. And I read it again for the original JAWGUST back in 2020. That's the last time I read it. And I'm not sure if I'd go back and revisit it. I like it. It is, it stuffs a lot in that doesn't need to be there, that they trimmed out, thankfully, to make the movie more entertaining. Hooper, I think, was more of a dick. We talked about this over at Fine Movies a bit, the differences, the whole mafia plot line, the affair, all that stuff that just wasn't needed. And of course, the ending was different. This was much more a blockbuster. The term blockbuster, I think, comes from the fact that the people who were in line and they were busting the block. They were around the block. But the whole giant, cinematic Hollywood ending made for such a better movie than, if the shark just kind of got, I'm tired, I'm going to go to sleep forever now. If that's how it was, because that's how it was in the book. You just kind of it was too much. They kept harassing that poor animal too much, and the humans destroyed that innocent beast. So besides Jaws, Peter Benchley's books have been adapted into a movie called The Deep, and The Island. He likes water. He does get credit on Jaws 2 based on the novel created by, and for Jaws 3 suggested by the novel Jaws, and in Jaws the Revenge, and in Jaws the Nintendo game, and then he had something called The Beast, The Creature, again, novel. These are some miniseries, some TV movies. The Amazon, that was a TV show he created. He wrote 2 episodes. And then more Jaws the video game, Jaws this, Jaws that. A Quint Miss Carol, someone created that, and they that gets an IMDb list. Excuse me. Kyle Gottlieb, he's the other writer, still with us today, and he came in, he kind of like cleaned up and trimmed up the original screenplay. As far as my understanding is, he actually wrote the Jaws 2. He wrote the screenplay for Jaws 3. I mean, he's like, look, if you're going to ask me to write it, I'm going to do it. He did The Jerk, the Steve Martin movie. That's pretty great. Smothers Brothers stuff. I mean, but look, his legacy is the fact that he wrote the movie Caveman with Ringo Starr and Jaws. And, let me see if there's anything before Jaws. Well, he did a lot of TV show, Odd Couple, The Dean Martin Comedy World, The Bob Newhart Show. Oh, the guy's got cred. Of course, he came in and made Jaws much more entertaining than I think the original credit. And then we're moving quite along right here. The next one is Zanuck and Brown, produced again. And then the last credit we see is the man, the myth, the legend, the man who introduced you to JAWGUST. If you don't believe in audio editing, then he definitely said that at the beginning. Mr. Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg. The first Steven Spielberg movie I probably saw was E.T. I probably saw that before I saw Jaws, because I mean I was a young boy. I wasn't going to see some scary shark movie right away. The guy's still going, still making great movies. The last movie that I saw of his was The Fabelmans, which is the last movie released that he directed. And I absolutely adored that movie. I thought it was so great. I thought the story was great. The characters, the acting, it's semi-autobiographical. Just, I walked away from that movie being like, yes. I didn't see West Side Story. I did see Ready Player One, which was enjoyable. I liked it. I loved the book, and they had to make that book into a movie. It seemed very difficult. I thought he did a pretty good job. I'd like to go back and revisit that because I really did like the book. And he's got 3 movies in production, it looks like, upcoming. A Napoleon TV miniseries. Okay, because didn't we get Napoleon with the Joker? An untitled Frank Bullitt project, and an untitled Steven Spielberg. Ooh, that one sounds interesting. Very intriguing and mysterious. And finally, the credits are over, and we are in this movie. The first, once the credits go away, the first face we see is this young gentleman with like a Dutch boy haircut, almost like do you remember in the original Ellen sitcom, she kind of had that little bob. It really reminds me of that. Now, this young gentleman's name in the credits of the movie says simply Cassidy, but the character actually is Tom Cassidy. He is featured in both the novel and the film. And under the Jaws wiki, jaws.fandom.com, it said, Tom Cassidy was Chrissy Watkins' boyfriend. Really? Because they just met. He almost goes swimming with her. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. But he comes over and, he's sitting there and he's smoking, I'm going to say cigarette. I don't think he's smoking a doobie. And he's drinking a beer. Now, the interesting thing is, I was like, what is that beer? What is that cup? It is something called Falstaff beer. Falstaff beer is from St. Louis, the Falstaff Brewing Company. I couldn't find that exact cup. There are some cups with that logo available on Wikipedia, but Falstaff Brewing Company was an American brewing company located in St. Louis, Missouri, With roots in the 1938 Lemp Brewing of St. Louis. Okay. The company was renamed after the Shakespearean character Sir John Falstaff in 1903. It went out in 2005 was the last time. And then the rights to the brand are still owned today by Pabst Blue Ribbon, Pabst Brewing Company. You know, the fact that Narragansett still puts out beer about Jaws, you know, Falstaff, Pabst, you could do the same thing. You have a Falstaff cup, just like it almost, the funny thing is when I first saw it, I thought it was a cup of noodles. So it doesn't quite stand out like a Gansett, and it's not as cool. And this kid with this nerdy haircut, not as cool, but it is still a beer that is being used in Jaws. And he's just sitting there smoking, looking cool because, look, let's be honest with you. If smoking didn't hurt you, I'd be smoking right now because you just, goddamn, can you look cooler than smoking? Kids, don't smoke. It's bad for you. Even though it looks goddamn cool, it doesn't. It actually doesn't look cool nowadays, maybe. But I have to tell you, you know what doesn't look cool? Vaping. I'd rather you smoke 25 cigarettes than vape once because that just looks, to me, I don't know. I just can't get over vaping sometimes. I don't know why. I've never vaped in my life. Hell, I don't think I've had I think I had a cigar like 15 years ago. That's the last time I've had anything. But anyway, he's smoking, he's drinking, he's having a grand old time. And in fact, he's drinking a little too much, which probably is a good thing for him. Again, remember, kids, smoking is cool and drinking too much by water can be beneficial. So he walks over and he sees this girl. This young gal that he's never met. We don't actually see them having a conversation. We don't hear them having a conversation. We just see them, kind of talking to each other. Now, this girl looks at this guy with this Dutch boy haircut, and she is completely horned up because she doesn't waste any time before running off. But before she runs off, I mentioned to you that someone, for some reason, in the sand, this came from my friend Eric. He told me this. Listen for someone, for some reason, talking about an amputee. What? He's an amputee? What the hell is going on there? Where did that come from? Where did that whole, what was the conversation they were having? And I feel like what I do love about it is there's no way that was told her to say anything. They just said, you know what? Talk to each other and I'm going to film it. I feel like that's what I saw. But that shot of right before they run off and you see the surf in the background, the water, the sand, and those dunes and the grass and the wood, it brings me back to being a little kid at Salisbury Beach at the end of, I would go every August. It's just, JAWGUST. It just and it would be hot in summer during the day, but cool at night. So you'd wear sweatshirts at night and hang out and you'd have just beach friends. Oh my God. It just brings me back. And it's just this shot right here that just brings me back to being a little kid. And I'm in awe of the older kids. The older kids could go around doing things, but you were younger, trying to be cool, trying to be older, and getting in trouble. And your grandmother says, "You need to go to bed. It's time for bed for you." And I'd be like, "No, Grandma, please." But I was no drinking and no smoking, and definitely no vaping because it was the 80s. But this shot I'm just looking at it right now, and it brings me back.
What's your name again?
Chrissy,
Where are we going?
swimming.
Slow up. Slow down. I'm not drunk. Slow down. Wait, I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm definitely coming. Whoa, hold up. What?
Now look, they just met.
I can swim.
He thinks he can swim,
Can't walk or dress myself.
but this does not make him her boyfriend. They just met. It's at this point that Chrissy runs into the water, skinny dipping, by the way. So there's no way that This guy's really drunk because he meets a cute girl. He wants to go swimming, skinny dipping with her. I mean, she is begging him to come into the water.
Come on in the water.
See, I told you. And, yeah, see, he just can't do it. And it's a good thing he didn't. Now, we don't know at this point what's going on because she seems to be having a good time. But she's swimming around. We see beneath her, I'm like, oh, maybe there's a turtle. Maybe there's a sea turtle or some sort of small fish. And we just see below her as she's kind of treading water. And that's where it ends. That's where the 4 minutes end. So for August 1st, 2025, for the first episode of Golden August, Chrissy's alive. Just a young girl swimming, having a great time, hoping to bang a dude in the ocean. I'm assuming. I mean, maybe just, just innocent swimming. But that's today. Tomorrow is a different story. But that's tomorrow's problem. Today, she's alive. Today, Tom Cassidy's thinking, oh, if I only didn't have much to drink, I can go out swimming with her. Maybe she'll come back later. We'll hit it off. We'll see. She does come back later. But I don't think, well, you don't hit it off. I know that. But, oh, my goodness gracious. I'm just thinking about the rest of the movie. I'm thinking about the fact that there's 30 of these to go after this. And I'm excited. I am pumped. I can't wait to see what happens to Chrissy. August is back. August is here. We are in the beginnings of the end of summer. It's crazy because, as I said, I used to go to the beach the last couple weeks of August and then get ready to go back to school. And I feel like they go back to school sooner and sooner every year. Like where my wife works, she's going back at like the end of August. And so she's only has she did summer school, so she taught that. So now she has almost 3 weeks of vacation. And I was thinking to myself, two different things. I thought, oh, wow, only 3 weeks and then you have to go back. And then I also thought, I haven't had 3 weeks off in my life. Not since I've had 2 weeks off and that feels like I'm going crazy. I've never had 3 full weeks off of work. I wouldn't even know what to do with myself. I'm kidding. I know what I'd do. I'd be podcasting. Copious podcasts. But yeah, I think that's it. Look, this is what you're going to get for August, for Golden August. I'm going to talk about 4 minutes. This 4 minutes was a little different because it was introducing all the names of all the actors and the producers and the people behind the scenes, the creative team. So I wanted to go through all of those. And of course, I had to tell my mother how I feel. And it was great to get an introduction from Steven Spielberg. That means a lot to me, Steve. I appreciate you for doing that. I still haven't watched that Jaws 50th documentary, which is kind of disgusting, the fact that I'm doing this and I haven't watched that. I feel like I'm going to watch it this month and talk about it this month. Let's just say I saved it for this month. And, even though we're talking 4 minutes of Jaws at a time, there are other things I can do Jaws related, including talking about this documentary, which I've only heard incredible things about. But as far as today and today's clip, we are done. The beach is closed. Ooh, did I just come up with an ending? We'll see if I think I did, but we'll see if I even remember it tomorrow. So that's it. I am done. The beach is closed. There, I remembered. You can, but until tomorrow, which I'll be back again doing this again, you can find me on all the socials at Geek Mentality. Mainly it's Blue Sky. And then over at TikTok, it's Geek Mentality Mike. The Facebook page is Fans Not Experts. The YouTube channel is Fans Not Experts. That's because the website is fansnotexperts.com. You can find every podcast I've ever done over at fansnotexperts.com. And you can find every episode of JAWGUST at fansnotexperts.com/JAWGUST. JAWGUST is part of Geek Mentality. That's the name of this actual show. So if you could subscribe to it or maybe give a YouTube comment or an iTunes review or whatever they call it, Apple Podcasts, or a Spotify comment, that would be great. I don't get a lot of those, but I do know you guys are out there, so I do appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow, but until then, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for finding this show. Thank you for continuing to follow this podcast, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're closing in on like the 700th episode of Geek Mentality. In fact, if my calculations are correct, and that includes any micro episode or any old Geek Mentality episode that I threw up as its own episode, but that counts. So if my calculations are correct, JAWGUST 31st will be the 700th episode of Geek Mentality. I wish I had that many listeners. Waka waka. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. I will see you tomorrow. Another day of JAWGUST. I'll be back, and I hope you will be too. But until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And here is my theme song.
This is my podcast, I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe, 'cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time, and I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode.
Fans, not experts.